Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. I have an important update. We're going to be breaking down some of the best performing altcoins that we've talked a lot about over the last couple months. These altcoins are already starting to break out, which tells me the big picture they're going to continue to be some of the biggest gainers over the entirety of the bull run. What we end up seeing every single new cycle is the altcoins that start leading the way end up being some of the best performing throughout the entirety of the bull run. If we're expecting some of the biggest returns sometime 2024 and 2025, then these are the picks that I think are going to be doing the best as well. So we're going to break it down. Thank you so much for tuning in. And with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. So the first one we're going to be talking about today is Salana. Now Salana taught me the most inside of the market, and the reason why is because I fumbled the bag the hardest on this crypto. I bought Salana and gave the signal for Salana all the way back down in here at 60 cents, pretty much the very bottom of its first bear market. If you could even call that a bear market, it's just its first higher high of its, the beginning of its trend. And I bought it all the way down in there, and it ended up performing so massive. But I ended up selling it at $3, so it did all of this, and I sold it all the way down in there for pretty much chump change. So when I did that with Solana, it taught me a lot, and it taught me the value of being able to hold the entirety of the cycle. Because the thing is, guys, had I have not sold a lot of the different altcoins, I bought Terra Luna at the beginning, I bought Solana at the beginning, I bought Phantom Network at the beginning, I bought a ton of these different altcoins that ended up being the best performers right from the very start. And I ended up selling Solana way too early. I sold the others anywhere from a 20 to a 40x. And then even though I held a little bit of them left over, had I have just kept what I had, it would have been, I probably would have made at least 25 to 50 million dollars. And that's just insane to think about in my eyes. And so for this cycle, I'm really even more so focused on holding what I've got for the entirety of the cycle. As hard as it can be, as damaging as it can be emotionally to be able to just stomach that type of stuff, you got to have thick skin in this game, and especially if you want to be able to make a 50 to 100x, because the only thing getting in the way of a 50 to 100x in crypto is pretty much yourself. Because most people that I know that can just simply hold stuff, they're the ones that ended up making those biggest gains. And it's just because a lot of them don't know what the heck they're doing. They're just holding the stuff, seeing what happens, and it just starts climbing and climbing and climbing, and then they just think it'll happen forever. And so you're either a delusional person that never takes profits, or you've got a system that works. And with me, the 4-year cycle seems to work very, very well, and that's what I'm sticking into going into this next cycle. The big thing that we've always talked about with Solana is how much it looks like Ethereum, right? Both of these cycles look exactly the same, going all the way down to the bottom of the bear market. The big reason I was such a big buyer on Solana and telling my group to buy it back down in here at 14 and 15 bucks was because of the fact it looked just like the first Ethereum cycle, which I happen to be a part of. I remember watching the ICO craze when everything was melting down, when everybody thought that Ethereum was going to be labeled as a security, when the SEC was going after all of these different ICOs that had launched and stolen money. The whole market was melting down, and I remember not ever wanting to touch Ethereum. I was like, no way, man, this thing's potentially dead. I'm not getting in it. And when I was watching the same thing happen with Solana all over again with the FTX collapse, this is something where I was like, okay, I've seen this before. It's time to go into it. Nothing has changed fundamentally with Solana in comparison. And as we're seeing Solana taking off like this, in my opinion, it really just points to, how overly emotional the market gets and why we should always look to buy fear, and eventually when that turns into greed, we can sell that too. But when we're looking at Solana, guys, this is what Ethereum did in the last cycle, and this was during a pandemic. So assuming that Solana is going to have its own unique sort of cycle, and we don't have a pandemic, I honestly think that Solana can go all the way up to $1,000 if things get crazy, and potentially more than that, guys. That wouldn't be that insane, and I do think that this cycle is going to surprise a lot of people if we get true institutional involvement in an institutional type of cycle. So this is one that's been breaking out. It's one that's already up a lot from where we were talking about it. Now that it's already kicking off this cycle, I kind of think that we'll make one more high, come to the low end of this bottom as support, except this will be resistance. We'll pull back and then come back down and retest some of these levels that we just recently broke from. In my opinion, that will really be the next move for Solana, and from there we can talk about potentially making that next leg up all the way up to the tops of these lower highs at resistance, being about 122 and 143 dollars. I mean, if we're looking big picture though, you know, I wouldn't really be trying to sell a lot of this stuff until we're getting beyond all-time highs. This is a long-term hold for me, always has been, always will be, and I think that as long as I'm holding the majority of the cycle, you know, Solana could do easily what Ethereum did in the last cycle. I mean, Ethereum did a 40, 50x depending on where you bought it at the low end of that bear market, and so same thing can happen with Solana, considering the fact that the ROI was even bigger because this got more oversold than Ethereum did. So I honestly think that this is going to be a big mover. There's going to be a lot going on in this cycle, so watch out for Solana. Now, next up on today's video is going to be Chainlink. Chainlink is once again in the same situation as Solana, where they both made their own sort of accumulations. This one didn't get nearly as oversold as Solana did, but it didn't have the same sort of meltdown in the bear market. This one spent, you know, 500 days in this very tight range, and we just recently broke out from that. So when I'm watching Chainlink, I do believe that what we're going to end up seeing here is probably one more impulse up to about 18 to 19 and a half dollars, somewhere around there, and then from there we could see a pullback back down, you know, maybe $10 potentially, fairly close to where we just retested from this. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some type of consolidation on top of that level. Now, if things just get really crazy, super impulsive, like Chainlink just takes out this range, and then we come back down as support, something like this, I really just wouldn't be surprised to see a much bigger move to the upside. But it doesn't matter to me. To me, we're going to see Chainlink into new all-time highs. And this is the beginning of the breakout to begin the brand new cycle. So it's like, you know, I don't really care what happens with the price. It could come all the way to the top of this lower high. And if it did so inside of just this next move, I'd probably take a little bit of profit just because we'd most likely see some type of pullback that I could just throw back into the market and compound more. But big picture, this is a long-term hold. I've been holding this since all the way back in the early point of 2020. I'm going to continue to just kind of stick to what I've got. I've been accumulating it ever since that point. So now that it's just breaking out of this bottom formation, I don't give a crap about selling. I'm planning on just holding a lot of this. Solana and Chainlink really kicked off this new bull market for the high caps, and I do believe that that's an early sign to tell what's going to end up happening big picture. So with both of these kind of leading the way, I think that we've got more upside coming. Both of these seem to have just retested a pretty decent support level. So this is acting as new support, and I do think that Chainlink's going to get ready for this next high at $18 and $19. So be watching out for Chainlink. Now next up is going to be PYR, or Vulcan Forge. This is one of the gaming tokens we've been watching, and this is one of my favorites because it's just had a significant bottom formation. It reminds me of Chainlink. It had pretty much the same sort of bottom formation, and when I'm looking for something like this to buy in a bear market, these are always the ones that are the best because they hold the best support, they pretty much hold the tightest range, they're just going sideways, and it tells me that there's a lot of accumulation taking place. You know, it was 520 days before it even had a significant move to the upside, and it was like 540 plus days before we broke out of it. And as of right now, we're only now just sitting on top of this as new support. So I think that the amount of upside potential is pretty high with this one. We could see this thing going up, you know, a lot higher from here. If we're looking at this thing big picture, assuming that we're going to hold this as support, we could see this thing make a breakout. I would say at least up to this level here being about $10 to $11. And then from there, I wouldn't be surprised to see some type of a pullback back down, you know. But big picture, these things are going to be coming all the way up to the tops of these lower highs. And we'll probably see pullbacks from those. But I mean, regardless, guys, a lot of these end up looking the same. A lot of them that end up breaking out early like this end up performing well the majority of the cycle. I don't think it's coincidental that all of these have already started breaking out. It tells me that there's been a lot of money accumulating them from the beginning. That's probably why they've held some of the best ranges. Solana itself had just a bigger breakdown, but it already had so much support that tells me why it's already had such a big upswing as well. You know, what goes up must come down and vice versa. So we're just seeing the end result of all of that downselling and it's taken place. Now with these ones, these are already starting to make these breakouts, and I think with us sitting on top of all of this as support, the much more significant breakouts to come are just getting started. So that's Vulcan 4. Now the next one on today's list is going to be Arbitrum. This is one of my favorites, not so much for the token itself, but just for the network. I've been a big time buyer of Arbitrum. You guys know I've talked a lot about it, and it's always been one of my favorites as far as upside potential with all of its entire ecosystem as a whole. So when we're talking about Arbitrum, whenever the token of Arbitrum does well, the entire market and the network as a whole ecosystem does well too. So when we're looking at this thing, all we've really done we've only made one real cycle, right? We got launched. That was the airdrop. That was the day everything started. And then we consolidated below this descending resistance all the way down in here until most recently when we broke out from that. So now that we've seen a breakout from descending resistance, one of the things that we've also done at the bottom of this breakout, we ended up actually seeing this double bottom formation. And so for us to be breaking out of the descending resistance, we also broke out of the top resistance of that double bottom formation, and we're sitting on it now as support. We're currently retesting it. So this technically is a double bottom formation breakout. This is also a breakout of descending resistance. We're currently just retesting that last high as new support before we get continuation up. And that's the move that I think is coming. So when we're looking at this, in my opinion, because we're looking at ARB breaking out, this shows that we're about to see a much more significant move ahead. Obviously, I mean, a double bottom formation is a reversal of the entire downtrend. So we would expect to see this thing climb all the way back up to those prior all-time highs and go into brand new all-time highs. So if this is going to happen, we're going to expect to see Arbitrum, the ecosystem, taking off as a whole. And that's why I think that this is such a good setup. You know, Arbitrum, the token, might not be the greatest investment because of the fact so many tokens are just distributed into the ecosystem for free. But you never know, guys. That could actually be the new way tokens start launching into crypto. And it could actually propel a lot of these prices, you know, pretty high. You never really know. A lot of these places might be just looking to mainly hold. But come the end of the cycle, you'll probably see them sell a lot of this stuff. It's kind of hard to really predict these type of things, but with the token breaking out, technically this looks good, and I think the Arbitrum is going to see a lot more money coming into the network, big picture. So be watching out for this stuff as well. Now, the next one on today's list is going to be Tau. Now, we're going to be looking at the wrap token just for the chart right now. Now, what we've been talking about last video, we talked about this. We were pretty much just right over in here at the point of breaking out of this high. And this was still below the prior all-time highs of that entire consolidation. And as you guys can tell, we have seen a significant breakout to the upside. That was around, you know, 80 to 90 bucks. And we've seen this thing go all the way up to $272. And so with the AI narrative, this thing's taking off already. Currently sitting at like $500 million market cap. I can't remember exactly where, but it's right around that threshold. So as it stands, this thing's already gained a lot of value. And I still think it's got a lot more upside as well. You know, when we're looking at this stuff big picture, we talked about in the last video how much money can actually come into the market caps of these things. And I think that a lot of these AI coins are only just getting started into their cycles. If we come over here and go to their actual exchange, we can see the all-time graph. And I wish I could make it bigger, but I can't, so I'm sorry about that. But we're going to see that this thing just recently, this was its first cycle all the way in here. And we just broke from those prior all-time highs. So that was the chart we're looking at. It's pretty much just this. So with us breaking out, we really have only just began this next cycle. So I don't necessarily think it's the worst FOMO buy in the world. But at the same time, like me, as somebody who understands risk reward, like this is, I don't like buying this type of stuff. I don't like buying stuff when it's just going straight up in the air. And that's when people oftentimes reach out and be like, hey, you got to get this. It's going to be the future. And I look at the chart and it's just going vertical and I'm always like, man, that's terrible. I can't get in. And sometimes you miss out on those, right? It sucks. Sometimes they end up just flying. Sometimes you don't. And so it's just the way that the market works. I don't want to really tell you guys exactly what to do. That's why I talked about it back in here, because that was a really good time to actually buy it. So with it breaking out, I wanted to give kind of an update. You know, I don't think it's the worst time in the world to be buying it. I still think it's going to do far bigger returns. When we're talking about an entire bull run, guys, this is still the beginning. We're still at the beginning of year one, or at the really the end of year one, I should say, which is still the beginning of the market cycle. So this is BitTenser. Be watching out for it as we're starting to see this major breakout. It can go significantly higher from here. It's only, you know, $500 million market cap. I think that's relatively undervalued when we're talking an entire bull run upon us. Next up on today's video is going to be Fetch AI. Now, Fetch AI is an awesome AI project, and so far it's really been leading the AI trend as a whole. We're seeing AI really being something that's going to be big this cycle. I don't think you can go wrong getting into it early, buying a lot of the different cryptos. Even if you feel like you're kind of FOMO buying, I still think it might not be such a bad idea, because we got to keep in mind, guys, that this is still the early point of the bull run. We still haven't had the halving yet. I would say that once we get post-halving, that's where you kind of just want to really be looking to hold and like not really be throwing your money into everything. But regardless, guys, historically speaking, as long as we're below the all-time highs, I don't think you can go wrong buying. Sometimes that's been after the halving. I mean, there's always been a period after the halving, but the majority of the profit potential comes in once the market breaks all-time highs. This cycle, it's been a little different. A lot of these altcoins are taking off in a big way, more than I've seen to begin new cycles. But, you know, we're getting a little bit further along into this cycle. Like I said, guys, we're almost at 2024. We'll only have to go till April, and then we're at the halving. So, you know, we are getting to a heated point in this cycle. As we're looking at Fetch, it's already broken out of all descending resistance. It's made its first higher high to begin this cycle. This is a wave 1 impulse. Wave 1. I'll make these white real quick, but we're getting ready for wave 2, and I believe that wave 2 is going to be taking us to these all-time highs. We'll probably see a pullback back down to the all-time highs as support before making an even bigger impulse as well. So, sorry, they were white. Now to give you guys a better depth view of how this is going to look, I do think that this is what is upon us for Fetch. And so if this is what is happening for Fetch, you guys got to expect that all of the AI coins are going to start doing similar results. So all of these are, you know, fairly undervalued. I think that this one's sitting at like $500 million total market cap too. So if we're talking, you know, hundreds of trillions of dollars coming into the market, if we're looking at a 10 to 20 trillion dollar total market cap, and if things got absolutely blown out of proportion with an institutional wave and a retail wave, we could see these things sitting at $50 trillion in total market cap. So we could easily see some of these at, you know, 10, 50, 100 billion, some of them hundreds of billions of dollars. And if this is sitting 500 million right now, and we see 10 billion, even 50 billion in total market cap, big picture, that's still a significant increase in price. And so it's going to be hard for people to be able to see this stuff. I understand that. But big picture, all this thing has ever done is a 1, 2, and a 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then our bear market was our ABC. We finish at, and then we broke out into this new cycle. So we've only ever had a one-wave impulse. This was a one-wave. And we're working and beginning a new 3-wave impulse. And this was a wave 1 of 3. So we're just at the very beginning of this new cycle. And because this next cycle is a wave 3, in my opinion, the upside potential for this one is absolutely massive, even though we're already starting to break out. So be watching out for Fetch. Now, next up on today's video is going to be Ocean. Ocean follows Fetch, and that's why I pretty much wanted to talk about this one, because it's the same setup. Both of them are one-wave impulses, ABC corrections, and we just finished a new 1 of 2. So I think that this one is getting ready to break out in the same way that Fetch is. The only difference is it's lagging in comparison. This one won't make quite as big of a move. It won't perform quite as well, but it's a more undervalued as far as market cap goes, and it does follow it. So as long as the other one's going to do well, this one's going to do well as so as long as the other one's going to do well, you can pretty much hold this one to do the same. And so that's pretty much my main reason for holding this. Once we can get above this high here, I think that that's where we're going to get set in for a much bigger move, probably up to $1.15, and maybe all the way up to the top of this high being $1.50. That's just what I'm watching for Ocean, but I think that AI as a whole is going to end up doing the same sort of stuff. So we got to be watching out for the entire narrative. Drop some coins that you're watching inside of the comments below. Anyways, guys, this is the video I had for you. If you found value, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos like the one provided for you here. If you guys want to join the Discord server, see how I'm investing, which of these altcoins I've gave signals for at what prices, look inside of the description of this video and you're going to be able to go on my website. From there, you're going to be able to purchase my VIP. It's a one-time payment, lifetime access. As long as I'm doing investing, you're always going to have access to everything I'm doing, and that's all posted inside of my private Discord server. So if you guys ever wanted to see when we gave signals for these, at what prices, links are in the description. Every single one of these have been talked about inside my group. Thank you guys so much for the support, and with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.